I'm Mindy Peterson, and this is Enhanced Life with Music, where we explore the ways music makes our lives better and spotlight the resources you can use to enhance your life with music. Joining me today from St. Louis, Missouri, is Amy Camie, also known as the Healing Harpist. Amy is a therapeutic harpist, recording artist, and inspirational speaker. She has been a pioneer in researching the role music plays in healing our bodies, particularly for cancer patients. Her solo harp CDs are used throughout the world in hospitals, cancer centers, and hospices, as well as for general relaxation and stress reduction. Amy had the chance to apply her work in her own life when she was diagnosed with cancer. She wrote a book about this experience called Loving Life, All of It, A Walk with Cancer, Compassion, and Consciousness. Welcome to Enhance Life with Music, Amy.
Thank you, Mindy. It's a joy to be here.
I'm looking forward to our conversation and talking about your work and your personal experience and your book. Before we start out, I just want to point out to listeners that even though we're talking today about music's application in cancer situations, this conversation does have broader application. If the listener is blessed to not have had a cancer diagnosis yourself and you don't have a loved one with a diagnosis, one of the endorsements at the beginning of the book is for you. Dr. Sandy Jost wrote an endorsement at the beginning of book. Sandy is an author and educator who points out having a tool like Amy's book, Loving Life, All of It, has to be the best thing for anyone who wishes to experience the world of healing in a more holistic fashion. Whether it be breast cancer or a common cold, I hope everyone will support their body in this manner when nurturing it to heal. Science is finally beginning to realize how important it is to include the quantum level of thoughts and emotions in the healing process. And that's the end of that quote. So, Amy, you had a calling to help people with cancer through your music long before you received a cancer diagnosis yourself. You're a certified therapeutic clinical musician. Beginning here, can you just explain the difference between a therapeutic clinical musician and a music therapist? We're huge fans of music therapy on this show and have featured lots of music therapists, but I know there is a little bit of a difference. So tell us a little bit about that difference, and then I want to hear about the ways that therapeutic clinical musicians use music to help those with cancer.
Yes, it's a little bit confusing because music therapy and therapeutic musicians, our fields both use the words music and therapy in some way. A music therapist is someone who is trained to use music to elicit specific outcomes in a patient. They're trained to use music in clinical ways to help the patient attain specific personal goals and objectives. A therapeutic musician uses music to help create an environment conducive for healing. So we use music to help create relaxation, or if they need more energy, we play faster. We use the concepts of resonance and entrainment in our observations of what the patient might need in that moment. And we're not necessarily attached to any outcome. We're more about creating the healing environment. Sure. So patients can benefit from both music therapy and therapeutic musicians.
Yeah, totally makes sense when you explain it, but it definitely can be confusing just because there are such similarities between the two titles.
Exactly.
Yeah. As I mentioned in the introduction, you've been a pioneer in composing and performing music and researching the role that music plays in healing our bodies. What do you want listeners to know about what research shows about how music can impact healing and the immune system, especially for patients with cancer?
Well, my journey has really started in 1987, and it was a very intuitive calling. And so over the last 25, 30 years, the field of using music to help patients, cancer patients, reduce anxiety, reduce depression, feel more socially connected, support the immune system, support the brainwave function, that's all been evolving as I've also been learning. I've kind of been working under the radar, so to speak, just following an intuition and creating studies that with researchers who are like, oh, I don't think she's crazy. Let's explore this. So specifically, some of the insights that I've discovered with some of our pilot studies with the immune system and with brainwave function is I have a specific CD called The Magic Mirror. And it was inspired music. It was
and this is your own composition, right?
So it's fascinating for me, the word composition, because for me, I didn't write it. For me, as a classically trained musician for over 45, 48 years.
And listeners can't see you. We're on a video call. You do not look old enough to have been doing this for that long, but continue.
I'm 59 years old right now.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Never would have guessed that.
So for a classically trained musician, the word composition for me would equate with, I have a specific intention. I want to create intentional music in this key, in this meter to elicit this specific effect. In that respect, I don't refer to myself necessarily as a composer because the music that moves through me is intuitive. It's like I don't consciously think about it. And that was a big journey from like getting off my sheet music to allowing and trusting.
Yes, I could really relate to that part of your story because I'm a classically trained musician and give me something written out, I'll play it. But whenever someone mentions the word improv, my eyes just sort of glaze over. But really the Magic Mirror was sort of a recording of you improvising and just letting the music flow that was coming through you at the moment. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. In fact, it was music that was inspired by a conversation I had with my husband. It was honestly based on ancient crystal healing chants like Do La Voa, Alauba, La Ruba, Aum. And those chants, those words, kind of woke something up inside of me. And so these melodies started to play me from the inside. It's like when you can't get a song out of your head. And they were literally like driving me nuts. Like I'm doing dishes and this music is singing me from the inside.
So literally had to get it out.
That is the only reason we went into the studio.
Wow.
Is to literally get this music out of me. There was no intention. So it's
23 minutes of solo harp music.
Yep.
And after you did get this out and record it, you started noticing some amazing, just very impactful responses to this music. So tell us a little bit about that.
So we recorded it and then we had the audio sample from the studio and I would let some people listen to it. We would listen to it. And what was happening is like people could not move after these 23 minutes. It put them in such a deep state of relaxation. It's almost like they went unconscious. Like I do transcendental meditation and it took me into a deeper state of relaxation than that meditation. And so we didn't release this for 2 years because we didn't know what was going on and we wanted to be responsible.
Sure. Do not listen while operating heavy equipment. Do not listen while driving.
There's warnings
on music.
There literally is a warning on the back of the CD.
Oh my goodness.
For people. And so during this time we had, and that, I'm eventually going to get to answering the question about the immune system and the brainwaves. During this time, we had developed and formed a nonprofit foundation called the Scientific Arts Foundation. We formed this was back in 2002. And the purpose was to just explore the value of creative expression as it affects quality of life. And we were working with a neurotherapist, Dr. William Collins, at the time, because he had done a prior pilot study with one of my other CDs that I had recorded for my dad after prostate cancer surgery. So here comes another connection to the cancer.
Yep.
And with that music, it was New Age piano solos that I recorded on solo harp. So I did not know the initial inspiration that manifested that music, but I knew what my intention was when I recorded it. And it was to help my dad relax and heal after prostate cancer surgery. Just briefly, Dr. William Collins, he did quantitative EEG on listeners as they listened to that music. And it did show that their beta waves calmed down and their alpha waves increased. So we were relaxing and calming the brain in 4 minutes. And so that first EEG pilot study was the one that said, wow, if we can relax and calm the brain in 4 minutes, perhaps we can impact the immune system. And that was, again, back in the late 90s. And that's the question that inspired the exploration.
Well, it makes sense because we hear so much about stress and the negative effects of stress on the immune system. So it makes sense that the converse would be true as well. If you can really relax, that it would be really have a healing effect on the body and maybe an anti-inflammatory effect on the body. But yeah, tell us more about what the research showed.
Exactly. So again, this was back in the 90s where the conversation of psychoneuroimmunology was not as present as it is today. Mm-hmm. And so we just went about, what do we want to measure? So we wanted to measure before and after listening to the music. We wanted to measure immune system biomarkers. A conversation with the husband of one of my dear musical friends, Dave Kosser, he happened to be a pharmacist, and his passion at the time was zinc. At a dinner conversation, we were talking about how cancer patients experience chemo brain, metallic taste, and nausea. And he's like, well, carbonic anhydrase 6 or Gustin is a zinc transport that affects these three areas. So he's like, well, maybe we can measure that. But at the time, it was not a proven immune system biomarker. But there was somebody here in St. Louis who was an expert in it, Dr. Abdul Wahid. And so we had a meeting. Dr. Wahid knew what we were trying to do. So he's like, okay, well, let's do a saliva sample pilot study. And we'll measure carbonic anhydrase 6 with amylase, IgG, and IgA, because those were confirmed immune system biomarkers. So what we did is we took saliva samples of just a varied population of volunteers, and then we had them listen to the Magic Mirror, 23 minutes. And then we took another sample right after that. And then I drove around St. Louis to everybody's place around the same time to get another sample 24 hours later.
Oh, wow.
So we could see.
And tell us what the results showed.
And so there was an impact on the immune system biomarkers after just 24 hours. So Dr. Wahid was like, well, let's try this again, because I'm curious to see how long this lasted. And so we did it again, and it showed a sustained impact on immune system biomarkers for up to 72 hours after listening to it once.
After just one time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so simultaneously, when we were doing the immune system biomarkers, we also were doing quantitative EEG with 5 patients going through chemotherapy for cancer. Dr. Collins did a quantitative EEG with everybody, and then we gave them a CD to listen to once a day for 10 days. So they took it home once a day for 10 days. We did not account for any other kind of variables during that time. They came back and they did a quantitative EEG again. The first time, everybody was individual. Some had high betas, some had high, low betas, some had high deltas, low deltas. Everybody measured, uniquely to where they were. After 10 days, every imbalance tended to normalize. Wow. So it was like they got individualized results from one piece of recorded music.
It's almost like adaptogenic herbs that sort of work for various ailments, but depending on what your need is, the herbs will address that. Here we have some adaptogenic music.
Exactly. And they also self-reported that they felt more relaxed and able to focus.
Huh. And just anecdotally, I know that you've had a lot of other people listen to this music and, like you already mentioned, to report better sleep, but also decreased use and reliance on medication, and even family pets staying calm during thunderstorms.
Exactly.
And this music you've made available. It's available on Spotify, Bandcamp, your website. Tell us where listeners.
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. So what the easiest way to find it is thehealingharpist.com. That's my link tree. And then there's links to all of the places where you can find the music.
Wonderful. I want to make sure you talk a little bit too about what the research showed about results on chemo brain, because that's one, maybe because I'm a woman and we experience so many hormonal changes through the different stages of life with, of course, puberty, but then pregnancy and childbirth and becoming, recovering from all of that. And then you have perimenopause and menopause. There's just so many hormonal changes that can affect us in many ways. But when I hear chemo brain, I feel like even though I haven't experienced chemo and cancer, I feel like I can relate to what that must be like in some way, shape, or form. Tell us what result the Magic Mirror music had on chemo brain and neurologic function.
Right. Well, at the time when we were doing the pilot studies, chemo brain was not even yet recognized as a thing. It was just kind of starting to gain awareness because patients were saying, hey, I can't focus. I can't think. I can't remember. So they were calling it cognitive deficits or brain fog. Mm-hmm. But the fact that these patients in our pilot study reported feeling more focused and having more attention, and we were actually measuring the balances within their brain function, we really felt that we were addressing this cognitive deficit problem with just the music. And that was one of the pushes that we were using to help gain funding. Again, at the time, we were a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And it was hard to communicate that. And unfortunately, the actual clinical trial was never implemented. I still own the protocol, and that clinical trial includes neurological, biological, standardized psychological quality of life and environmental measurements. I mean, even at the time, we were aware of epigenetic lighting and surfaces and how our environment affects our sensorial input and experience of music. So right now, I just made the music available. Actually, I secured some domain names to make it easy for people to remember. So musicforchemo.com.
Okay.
We'll take you to a page, and what I've done is create an extended track that includes 3 of my CDs: The Magic Mirror, Spiral in Time, and Love's Gentle Embrace. It's all therapeutic music, and I've made The Magic Mirror, the first 23 minutes of that track, available as the preview. So anybody can listen to it anytime.
What an incredible resource. And I just want to point out too, that the research showed that listening to the Magic Mirror, that 23 minutes of solo harp music, not only slowed that cognitive deficit, the chemo brain effect, but it actually increased brainwave function, which is just fabulous. I mean, to be able to accomplish those results by listening to music and have it also be inducing this state of relaxation is just such an incredible gift that you've given to the world, and particularly cancer patients, although, as you mentioned, it can be used by anybody. So really love
Absolutely.
that.
In the world of audio mixing, it's all about achieving balance, and that starts within. Introducing flow state mixing, where yin and yang principles harmonize every step of the process. No more forcing the mix. With flow state, we listen to the music's own voice, shaping it gracefully. Achieve an organic sound that flows with the music's intent while bidding farewell to technical hardship. Gain access to proven Logic Pro mix change sequences, unlocking instant results while honing your instincts for continual growth. Flow State Mixing, where inner balance meets sonic brilliance. Start your journey today. Visit flowstatemixing.com.
If you're a regular listener of this show, you know that my favorite energy bar is Jam Bar. One thing I love about Jam Bar is that the 4 original flavors are separate and distinct. Unlike some bars whose different flavors seem to all taste the same, there is no flavor fatigue with Jam Bar. This was especially helpful when we moved recently and we're eating them even more than usual. I love all the flavors, so it took a while for me to settle on my favorite. Just as I decided musical mango was my favorite, Jam Bar came out with a 5th flavor, Tropical Trio. This bar is like taking your taste buds on an exotic island escape. And it's definitely right up there with Musical Mango as my new favorite. These certified organic whole food bars are non-GMO and gluten-free and include vegan, dairy-free options. Support your active life and your taste buds with Jam Bars. Available at Amazon, select retailers, and jambar.com. Well, tell us about the book. You yourself were diagnosed with breast cancer in 2010. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the journals that you kept throughout your cancer journey, and then you were asked to give hospital presentations. And those journals and presentations sort of coalesced into becoming this book. The presentations you were asked to give at hospitals were because of your unique perspective, being both a therapeutic practitioner and patient. So tell us about your book, Loving Life, All of It, A Walk with Cancer, Compassion, and Consciousness. Tell us a bit more about the book and who it's for.
Sure. So prior to my diagnosis, I was doing presentations in cancer support communities for nurses, for professional care providers, and sharing with them my perspective about why our pilot studies were eliciting this type of results. And it was all about the staying open, the embracing, the love moving through the music. I was demonstrating sympathetic resonance and entrainment. So I was giving language to why I felt our results were happening. And part of the conversation was about when you're diagnosed with anything, our immediate impulse is kind of fear. It's like that tightening, like I got to fight, I've got to protect. And from my perspective, that kind of closes everything down instead of the love, which opens things up. So when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, it felt like a cosmic joke because I felt like a total hypocrite saying, well, if I have all this wisdom and I'm sharing all of this information in this way, what's the deal? Why am I now faced with this journey? And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, turn the mirror, Amy, because there's a lot here for you to learn. And I recognize I was a person who always put people first. I have my own issues. I'm adopted. I have fears of abandonment. I'm a people pleaser. I totally forgot how to love myself. It's so easy for me to love other people, but I wasn't loving myself. And so I knew that this breast cancer diagnosis was an opportunity for me to learn how to love myself again, because I really feel like as an artist, as a musician, as a human being, we bring that which is within us out into the world. And then it sympathetically resonates with those around us. And if I'm truly not loving myself, then that frequency is not flowing through my music.
Wow.
And honestly, it was an excuse to stop and slow down because I was in production mode a lot of the time.
Sure.
And so I decided to keep a journal. And from this perspective of learning how to love myself. And my whole journal is available online for anybody to access anytime.
And then portions of that are incorporated into your book, which is partly your personal journey and the lessons that you learned. It's part workbook for the reader, and it's part photo album. And the photos are just incredible. You had these taken. Well, tell us a little bit about the photos. You had them taken after your second round of chemo, after losing your hair. And I just love the photos, first of all, but I also love your purpose for having this photo shoot. Tell us a little bit about that.
So as my hair was starting to fall out, I remember one evening I'm looking in the mirror and I've got my arms wrapped around myself and I feel like Gollum from the Lord of the Rings, like that character with like no hair and just kind of, I was losing weight. And I had this vision of a photo shoot of just taking off the layers. I'm losing my hair, no makeup, no eyebrows, no protection. Who am I? At my core. And I called a photographer friend of mine. She's like, "Oh, I see it. Yes, yes." So I went over there.
She caught your vision for what you had in mind.
She has it. And she put on the Magic Mirror music. And so the Magic Mirror
during the photo shoot.
Yeah, it was playing during the photo shoot. And we just took pictures. And I had some scarves and different, it was just this natural flow. It was just divine. And then as I was synthesizing the life lessons that I had learned out of my journal writings and creating chapters for this book, I realized, oh my gosh, there is an I am photo that aligns with every lesson that I'm pulling out. So it was not a conscious thing, like I'm going to have photos for my chapters. It just happened and it all came together.
Yeah. And when you say the I am photos, that's what you refer to this photo shoot as. It's a series of photos that capture the essence of who you are, who I am, beyond your experiences and without any of those layers of protection that we all create and depend upon as part of our identity. So it was really powerful reading about why you wanted these photos taken, what your intention was in having the photo shoot, and just the vulnerability that you express and the honesty and transparency that you express in your book. And these photos really do capture the various emotions that someone would experience when they're faced with a life-threatening illness. And they really capture both your strength and your vulnerability and your serenity in the face of all that you're experiencing throughout this journey. I mean, they're really, really powerful. And I know the photographer, Julie, mentioned in the book that you asked her to not retouch the photos. And so she respected that. And I love that. I think the favorite one of mine was I think it was called I Am Joy. And it was just, this radiant photo of you smiling. And when I flipped to that page, I was like, wow, that's really amazing. So that's my favorite. And just this theme that sort of goes throughout the book and throughout the name of your CD, The Magic Mirror, is sort of this reflecting. And one of your acknowledgments in the book really caught my attention. You said, "To all those who lovingly walked with me, through your eyes and hearts, I saw my reflection. Thank you for seeing me." Loved that. And you talk in the book about how your intention in the book is not to offer answers or solutions, but to share openly and honestly the significant steps of your own journey. And you say that it may awaken a new perspective or possibility within you, the reader. And you say, "My suggestion would be to read it slowly, reflect on what feels relevant for you, and gloss over that which does not resonate with you at this time." So love that. So you have these different sections of the book. The last section of the book is these different life lessons. And there are a few that really caught my attention, but are there any in particular that you want to mention to readers that had special meaning for you, or that maybe you've gotten a special response from readers or listeners, or is it just sort of depend on the person, which one resonates most with them?
Yeah, it depends on the person. And I will tell you, like right now, so I wrote the book, 10 years ago? That was my journey, happened 10 years ago. And these life lessons and the I am statements resonate so deeply with me now. I mean, these aren't something that just are relevant for that moment. Again, it's a spiral of life. As we learn and grow and have more experiences, everything just deepens. And one of the, particularly right now, that's relevant for me is a shift in belief expands perceptions and alters the experience. And that's the life lesson that goes with I am light. Right now, personally, the loving life, all of it part is the awareness that we are so full as human beings. And I use the metaphor of a harp. Like the harp has low strings and high strings, and we have low traumatic life experiences, and we have joyful high life experiences, and we have inherited unconscious epigenetic experiences from our lineage and our ancestors. And there is no way that I will ever be able to discover the fullness of who I am or all of me, but I'm on a continual path to explore as much as possible as it emerges. And right now, personally, I am going through totally unexpected waters, navigating situations I never imagined that I would have to do. Mm. And these life lessons are helping me now in a different way, and in a deeper way, because human beings are very full, we're very complex, and this whole journey has just helped me become so compassionate for all of my experiences, all of my strings.
And as you mentioned, including yourself, sometimes being compassionate for ourselves is the hardest lesson to learn.
Absolutely.
In fact, you tell the story in Life Lesson 5, that chapter of the book. You tell the story that somebody told to you. This person said, I don't know why I have to tell you this story, but I do. And then you give your version of it, where a well-known and wealthy woman dies and goes to heaven, where she meets St. Peter at the pearly gates. And I won't tell the whole story. I'll let listeners read that. But that was a story that really caught my attention. Like, wow, this is really powerful, a powerful lesson for me to think through too, about really accepting the gifts that are given to me in this life and not refusing them, but to recognize them and accept them. One of the other chapters that really caught my attention was in Life Lesson 7. You were talking about not only the cancer diagnosis you were dealing with, but your son had a serious medical issue that you were dealing with CAT scans and things like that. And then your car broke down right before Christmas. And I was like, oh my goodness. And you talk about how you and your husband finally just started laughing. And it was like, okay, we've gotten the message. We need to let go of control. Like, we don't have control. It's not about controlling the outside. It's about learning how to dance within each moment from the inside. So that was another one that was really powerful. And then just a final one that I'll mention was Life Lesson 11, where you talk about the experience of when you realized you were losing your hair and the tears surprised you. You thought you were prepared, but then it happened, and just how the emotion that went along with it. But then the freedom that you felt when you did shave your head and didn't have any, you were bald, and just the sense of innocence and freedom that came with that. And it gave you sort of the confidence to address other sort of veils of protection or masks that you felt you had worn. And so that was just another incredibly powerful account, that you're so vulnerable and so honest and sharing. And I just really was so inspired reading about it. So thanks for sharing that. I really encourage people to get the book and read it. The ending of your book, you say, thank you for taking this walk with cancer, compassion, and consciousness with me. I hope it was a mirror for you to see the beauty, joy, love, and magic in your life as well. So just loved that. There was a quote that I wanted to read too, and then I'll promise I'll stop talking and stop with the quotes and let you tell us about your resources on your website. But Charlie Prather, a board certified oncology social worker and therapist, had a quote in your book. The quote is, rather than suffering through her cancer diagnosis and recovery, Amy chooses to use her personal experiences of challenge and transformation as a teaching moment for herself and others. She chooses to utilize each treatment and side effect as an opportunity to heal old wounds, to realize her inner completeness. One treatment, one decision at a time, Amy shows us how to stop being at war with our bodies and our past experiences and begin to live joyfully and completely in spite of our circumstances. She invites us to practice self-awareness, acceptance, and mindfulness when facing challenges, gently inviting us to embrace ourselves full on as an alternative path to negativity and blame. Thank you, Amy, for this special gift. And I can't think of a better way to close out this conversation than that beautiful summary. Well, tell us about the other resources that are available on your website, amycamie.com. It's spelled AMYCAMIE.com, and there will be a link in the show notes. But tell us about some of the resources, because I know there's a lot on there.
Sure. So as I mentioned, my journal is there. I have one of the menu options that literally says My Journey with Cancer. And so there's a video of the I am images. There are links to the book. There's a page about if you're putting together a care package for somebody with cancer, some ideas.
Great.
So that's part of the cancer. And then, interesting, when I was going through my journals, I used the term conscious self-care because I felt that's what I was doing. The consciousness part was the awareness of the old patterns and the old behaviors. And then the self-care was literally just how am I making choices in every moment to take care of myself? So I have expanded a presentation I was doing prior to my diagnosis, which was vibrational awareness and the healing power of music. I expanded that to conscious self-care program, specifically for professional care providers, for nurses and social workers, mental health professionals, massage therapists. And I have 2 videos on my website that are approved for CEUs and contact hours. If any professional care providers need some CEUs.
Education?
Continuing education, yes.
Okay.
The videos are available for anybody to watch, but if you need the CEUs or contact hours, you can just purchase them. I think they're $30.
Fantastic.
Yes. And then I have videos of music and concerts and just more information about the research and presentations that I do. I love to share these ideas and demonstrate the resonance and bring in some neuroscience and demonstrate entrainment. And I package that in presentations and programs called Creating Team Harmony. And I've done a TEDx talk. So there's a lot. There's a lot there.
There's a link to there. Yeah. So there's a link to that on there. There's some essential oil information.
Yes.
And I think people can sign up for a session for you to just play the harp for them. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yes. I'm offering peaceful moments sessions through heal.me. And you can schedule through my website or, again, my link tree, which is thehealingharpist.com, has a direct link to them.
Love it. So lots of information on there and lots of great resources. Well, Amy, this has been so fantastic chatting with you. Love this gem of a book that you've put out there. As you know, I ask all my guests to close out our conversation with a musical ending, a coda, by sharing a song or a story about a moment that music enhanced your life. Is there a song or story that you can close us out with today?
Well, I have my harp right here. So I don't know if it's going to be a song or what it's going to be, but I'm just going to sit down and play and let's see what comes through.
Wonderful. Love it.
Or let's hear what comes through. I
feel more calm just listening to a minute of that harp music. Thank you so much to Amy for all she does to enhance lives with music through her research, her music, and this book where she so transparently shares her journey. You'll find all links from today's conversation in the show notes, as well as a transcript of this episode and links to related episodes you may enjoy, including chronic pain, relief and management through music, harnessing the arts for health and wellness, and utilizing music in perioperative care. You can always connect with me on email, mindy@mpetersonmusic.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing the show with your friends and family. Until next time, may your life be enhanced with music.